Hi, I'm Selena from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester, and I'm here with Jule Selbo. Jule is a mystery writer, and I'm going to let you talk a little bit about um, what it is exactly that you write.
Well, I was a screenwriter in Los Angeles for a long time. I started as a playwright in New York, moved to LA, was a screenwriter. And I finally, 4 years ago, said, your goal when you were a kid was to become a mystery writer. So time's a ticking here. You better get to it. So we moved to Maine, which I love. And I wrote, this is my first book, Find Me in Florence, which is kind of a mystery romance that takes place in Florence, Italy, because I was living there for a while. But in Portland, I came up with this idea for a mystery series called the D. Rommel Mysteries. Starts with 10 days. And then this one is just coming out, 9 days. Sorry about the arc there thing, because the book, I don't have a really good copy of it yet. And so it's a mystery series featuring a woman who was a cop, a policewoman on the Portland Police Department. She gets a on-the-job injury that's kind of life-changing. And so she has to decide what her future is going to be. Her godfather is a private investigator. So he wants to get her out of the house, get her out of her head. She starts doing the books for him and gets pulled into being his assistant and eventually going on to get her own private investigation license. And it takes place in Portland here, right where I live. And I fell in love with the city. It's about the same size as city as I grew up in. I grew up in Fargo, North Dakota. And so Portland just felt very homey, and plus we're surrounded by water. So that's just fantastic. And it's a good sized city so that there are problems and troubles and crime, but a lot of people know each other because I wanted that close-knit community. But it's she's a tough cookie. She's got a big chip on her shoulder, not only because of her injury, but because of her family situation and just who she is, and how she just believes in justice, and wants to make things just and get to the truth of things. So she's got good friends, but she says what she means. She doesn't dance around anything. And so she's really a lot of fun to write because, we all kind of go through our lives being polite in certain situations. And Dee just doesn't kind of like feel like she has to do that. She gets right to it. So it's fun to write.
It's kind of like what you want to be like, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I know. Understand that one. So I was going to ask you later on, how important is the New England setting been to your writing? And apparently it really is.
Yeah, growing up in North Dakota, it's beautiful there and I love it. And some of my family's still there. But I always, for some reason, wanted to go east when I was a kid. And I wanted to go to Boston University. And my father said, oh, no, you'll get corrupted if you go east.
Oh, yes, we're terrible here.
And so I ended up not going east. And then as soon as I was out of college, I moved to New York as fast as I could. And I just love the East Coast. And my husband grew up on Long Island, New York. And so he's very much an East Coast person too. So the time that we spent in LA, which was like 25 years, we were always counting the days till we could get back here.
Okay. So what was the inspiration for 9 days?
Well, it's the second in the series. So the series will go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I know what I'm going to be doing for the next 4 years.
Okay.
And so the inspiration, it's so interesting because writers start their books in so many different ways. For me, I always just, I'll just start like writing a character. And if the character starts to compel me to write more and a situation arises and characters pop up, then I just go with it. And obviously she kind of like has taken over my life. But
Mhm.
it wasn't like I said, I wanted to write a female detective, police investigator series. That was my goal. But I didn't know what she was going to be. And it turned out, oh, well, she was a cop, but now she can't be a cop right now. She's got to decide if she wants to continue being a policewoman, or does she need to pivot because of her injury? And so the impetus was just starting to write and see what she became. And then now I've got this big 10-book arc for her. How, where she started in 10 days, her emotional life, her romantic life, her professional life, how she sees the world life, and then where I think she might end up at one day. So I had this long arc in mind that now I have to kind of, gently push her through, make
Mhm.
sure she goes through a change in each book, but she doesn't do a whole 180 all at once.
Okay. And what were the steps that you took to take it from your initial inspiration to a finished product?
Well, the way that, especially because it's a mystery, I always feel like there's got to be twists, there's got to be turns, there's got to be surprises. And so if I'm going along and I'm going, okay, well, it's time for something to, take another turn. And, because I like to have the reader wanting to turn the page. I just like writing page turners. And I think also my experience as a screenwriter taught me pacing, because sometimes you had to tell a story in 47 minutes or an
Mhm.
hour and a half, but a full story. And so you had to really kind of get an engine going. So I think what's interesting for me is when I feel the 80-mile-an-hour engine is lagging, or I need gas or something like that, I just kind of go, okay, what's the pivot here? How can I get her to the next place sooner than I thought I was going to? And how can I surprise her and surprise the reader at the same time?
Mhm. Okay. So what kind of research did you have to do for this book?
Well, for 9 days, first of all, when she in 10 days, she was after the bad guys, and it was winter and snow and ice, and there was a new construction going on, and the bad guys, got up the 6 stories to the roof, and the roof had a whole bunch of stuff around, building stuff. And so she gets kind of, her partner ends up not getting there to help her at the right time, and she gets pushed off the building, so by the bad guys. And so she falls 6 stories. She lands in a dumpster that's full of soppy drywall and fiber board and stuff. So her leg gets shattered. So she and they, she's in, this is kind of like, you find out the backstory a little bit in 10 days. And so she, was in the hospital for a long time. They ended up having to amputate the lower part of her left leg. So she's not only had to learn how to, as an amputee with a prosthetic, she was an athlete, so now how can she still do all those things that she loved doing? If she goes back to the police force, are they going to force her to be on the desk? Her goal was to be a detective. And are they going to let her be out in the field? And if she is out in the field, what challenges, what things can she not do? So in 10 days, she kind of is dealing with that for the first time, but nothing stops her. She just goes for it all the time, tests the limits. I have a friend here in Portland, and I didn't meet him until after I was writing this book. And this was pre-COVID, and I'm a coffee shop writer, and I had my little 5:00 a.m. Coffee shop that I could walk to every morning. And there was just a group of us. We all kind of like people were reading or just having their coffee or checking their phones, and I was always in the corner writing. And this John Lemieux is this man's name, and he had had cancer and went through many, many operations and ended up having one of his legs amputated. And he was amazing. He was an ex-basketball coach. He still goes to the court and coaches, but he's not as active as he used to be. But he's a big golfer. He started this tournament. I mean, he was so inspiring and loved to talk about his experience. So he and I became good friends. So I did a lot of research with him. I went to a lot of clinics around town. I did a lot of reading, watched a lot of YouTubes. So I had to do research on that. Another part of 10 days is there's a whole, she gets pulled into this kind of a tech situation. She's been hired. She and her godfather have been hired to help this, not as quite as big deal as Elon Musk or Bill Gates, but a very high-tech guy who's into AI. So I had to do a whole bunch of research on that. And then in 9 days, the one that's coming out in a week, well, actually you can get it on Amazon now. They just came out 2 days ago. One of the person that they have to help is a world famous astrologer. So I got to do tons of research on astrology. So the fact that Dee is dealing with this injury is a small part of each book. And within each crime, each case that they take on, I kind of choose what's interesting to me. And it turned out during COVID, we all got interested in different things. I kind of got interested in astrology. And so I did a lot of research on that. So I kind of take each book to dig into whatever is interesting to me at the moment.
So what's your favorite research story that you've had? And that's not necessarily for just your books, but for anything.
Well, I've always liked history. I've always liked research, even when I was a kid. But it all came together with my love for writing and entertaining and writing for people. I was lucky enough to be hired on the writing staff of Young Indiana Jones Chronicles for George Lucas. So I worked with him and the 5 other writers on the writing team. I think I was there for 3 years and some. And it was interesting because we were up at George's ranch up in Marin County in Nicasio. And he was very involved, and to sit in a room with him and have that brain going is just amazing. But we every night, every day, we would show up at his office and we would break a story, and then eventually it would become an episode. But that's down the road. But when we left at each day, we would be handed another stack of papers and books and articles and whatever. And we were supposed to go back to our places that we were staying on the ranch and do our reading. And then they would feed us a wonderful dinner. We would go back and do our reading. And we would have to come the next day in order to break another episode. So it was like one night I was learning about Mata Hari. Another night I was learning about the first anthropologist, Stanislaw Malinowski, or I was learning about Puccini. We were doing all this research because the whole premise of the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles was it should be as historically correct as possible. But there's this imaginary character who is making all these great things happen. And so I think doing that made me just love research even more. And as you know, you can just get stuck in research. You can go forever. And at some point you have to go, okay, now just write. Otherwise you're going to be stuck, because you can just, go on and on and on. But I love the research part of it. And it's like the 8 days, which I'm working on now, I had no idea really how, I know it sounds kind of terrible, but I really had no idea how cell phones work, or cell towers, or antenna towers, or all this stuff. And it's a small part of the mystery of 8 Days, but I had to be able to understand it.
Mhm.
So I've been doing research on that now.
Oh, wow. Okay. So what was the biggest challenge that you had in writing and putting out 9 days?
Well, just getting it done. I my life during COVID didn't change that much because I'm still a professor. So I had my students, but it was all via online. And then I'm a writer. So my day was basically divided between writing and my students. And, besides the ups and downs of worry and feeling claustrophobic and wondering, is this ever going to stop? I guess there was a little bit of that time where I just was like, okay, just focus and get it done. Beginnings are always fun, and they're not easy, but they're always fun because you're
Mhm.
setting up. There's recurring characters in the D. Ramos mystery series, so I have to and get the antagonist and the villains set and some other characters that are going to come in just for that book. But it's fun to go back to my recurring characters.
Mhm.
But so, and then, but the middle always is, you're like, okay, I know where I have to go, but what time of day is it in the book? Does she have to get something to eat? Does she have to go pick up her laundry? Does she have to, how do you make it like her life is still going on, but there's something really intense that she has to take care of and get her from place to place. So there's lots of time for me where I'm writing and then I rewrite all the time. And then I go lay on the couch and I think. So I think it's, the middle is always the tough one. If you get the beginning right, and the middle, if it works out, hopefully the end, it's not easy to write, but you know what you're doing.
Mhm. Okay. So what else can we expect from you in the near future? And I know you said there's going to be different mysteries for 7, 8,
Yeah.
7, 6, 5, whatever. Um, so is that what we can expect? Just
Yeah, well, I do want to get these done because it's something I promised myself, and I do love this character and the world. Then going back to that love of research, yeah, I would like to do
excuse me.
historical fiction mystery.
Oh,
And I don't have any idea what time period, who it would be, where it would take place. But that's something that's in the back of my head that after I finish this, I'd like to start one of those series.
oh, that sounds good. Okay, now I have some questions for you about being a writer. What's your favorite part about being a writer on the whole writing and publishing process?
I guess it's having the time to figure out what I'm thinking. The writer Nora Ephron, I think she's pretty famous for saying this, I write so I can find out what I'm thinking, or what I think. And I find that totally true. I mean, because even if I'm writing my antagonist, my villain, whatever, it is still a part of me, their rationale or something. And how do you rationalize someone doing really something bad, which also means that you have to figure out how you would rationalize it. And it's like you said earlier when we started talking that D. Rommel is the person that sometimes I wish I could be. That's not so so not politically correct, but just kind of more careful of people's feelings. And I'm a typical writer. I'm an introvert. I do like to get together with a couple of friends at the end of the day if I can, but it's really just kind of living in my head and learning a lot of stuff. I wrote this book. It's this company called Mentorist Project. This is Laura Bassi, And the title of it is Breaking Barriers. And it's about this woman in the 1700s in Bologna, Italy. And I think she was a genius, who knows? I mean, it was so long ago, nobody was putting those labels on, especially women at the time. But she turned out to be the first experimental physicist, and started a department at the University of Bologna where she couldn't even get into school when she was 5 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old. But she had this amazing father who brought tutors to her. And she ended up teaching Galvani and Volta and all these amazing people, and becoming friends with Voltaire and Benjamin Franklin, letter writing friends. And, so I don't mind being by myself and just reading and writing and, finding out about things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a challenge. It's kind of an opportunity. But then the challenge is also sometimes I feel, isolated, and then I become insecure because I think, my friends won't ever talk to me again because I'm not being a good friend and all that kind of stuff. So you kind of go back and forth.
Okay. So what was your favorite adventure during your writing career?
Probably moving to Los Angeles. I mean, moving to New York was great, and having a couple of plays done off Broadway, and then getting hired in film and television. But I grew up loving movies, making little movies when I was a kid, and then getting hired in LA and walking on the studios, like my first time on Paramount Pictures lot and Universal and Columbia, and going, oh my God, the history here. And here I am walking on these, roads basically in the studios. And so that was really a great adventure. And then I got to work with some amazing people. It's, being a screenwriter was fun, and I had a really good time in Hollywood doing film and television. I'm kind of glad that now I'm writing my own stuff, and I'm not stuck in those never-ending meetings of, well, what if it was this instead, and that kind of thing. So I think that was really exciting time in my life.
Great. So what was the greatest lesson that you've learned during your writing career?
I guess patience. Just especially, when you're on a deadline, you can get really nervous that you're never going to get it done, and it's not going to be good, and you're going to get fired if you're on assignment or something. So you can make yourself a little bit nuts because you are pushing so hard. And it took me a long time to figure this out. But if I work every day, put in my hours, if I can't figure something out, go for a walk, and just not let myself get crazy if I feel like I'm blocked in some way, that there's always something that's gonna, pop into your brain eventually. And I'm a big person on making deadlines, so I would put a lot of pressure on myself. But you always can do it. You just have to be patient.
To give yourself some slack, in other words.
Yeah, just be patient and just trust yourself, trust your brain, trust your imagination, and don't overthink and don't second guess yourself. Just go, just do it.
So is that the piece of advice that you kind of want to share with other writers?
Well, I guess in relation to that is, it's your story to tell, and readers are going to go along with you, or viewers, or whoever it is. They're going to go along because you're telling the story. They're not asking you to tell the story that they want to hear. They want to hear your story. And so there's no reason to second guess or try to write for someone else. It's your brain, the way you see the world, your point of view, and you're the guide. And let yourself be the guide, and just write it and then let the reader go along.
That's great advice. Wow. So are there any clubs, groups, or organizations that you would recommend to other writers that might have helped you with your career?
I'm a big advocate of writers groups. I've done them. I had a group in college, and I was writing plays in college, and we would put on my plays, and then when I moved to New York, there was a group called the Writers Block, and it was mostly playwrights started out, and then a lot of us went to LA. We became screenwriters. I think I guess I'm not a member anymore because I'm in Maine and I have 2 writing groups here that I'm a member of, but I kind of feel like I'm still part of that writer's block because we still see each other as much as we can and we are in touch. And what we would meet once, initially in LA, we met every week, every Monday night, because we were all trying to, get our careers going. So everyone would show up with pages or ideas and pitch and read our pages and get feedback from the friends that we trusted and take the notes that we liked and didn't take, didn't worry about the ones that we didn't like. And so I think, not to be precious about your stuff, not to worry about someone stealing it. I don't think writers steal from each other that much. I don't believe that because we all have our own. I can't write what you write. I can't write what somebody else writes. And we have our own stories that we want to tell. So writers groups, like right now I'm in a group called Pine Nuts, which is a wonderful group that they were so nice to let me in when I first moved to Portland. So it was a way to meet people, and I was working on 10 days actually. So I was able to work it out with, they would read chapters and give me feedback. And then I'm in another one called Sea Dogs, which is just 3 people. And you just get down to the nitty gritty sentence stuff. And Pine Nuts is more about story and stuff like that. So if someone, it's just helpful. Everyone's different the way that they are, want to manage their work. But if that is of interest to people, I cannot encourage them more. I think it's just so good. And it gets you out of your little office too.
Mm-hmm.
Gets you talking to people.
Helps. That really helps sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have questions now about you as a person. What is one thing that most people don't realize about you?
Gosh. Well, I like to cook.
Okay.
I actually trained to be, when I was a struggling writer in New York, and I actually got my chef certificates, and I worked at some restaurants, and so I still love to cook. I guess I don't know if I come off so much as an introvert, because when I am around people, I try really hard to be as interested in them as I can. But yeah, I like to spend a lot of time by myself. I don't, gosh, I think that's probably, I'm not that interesting.
If I had $1 for every author that's told me they're an introvert,
I know, we're just terrible. And that means we can't talk about ourselves. And
right. Okay.
I think that a lot of people wouldn't think that I'm insecure, but I think that that's a huge thing. Maybe it is because partly it goes with being an introvert, because since I don't put myself out there that much, then I'm like worried that, oh, well, I won't have anyone to talk to if I go into a group because I haven't been around that much. And, so insecurity, about work and about life, and, it's just, we all want to feel good about ourselves all the time. And I don't know if anybody can do that, but.
Right. Okay. So now what are some of your passions when you're not writing, and how do you make time to do things that you love?
Well, the things that I probably, I love NFL football. I'm so excited that the season's starting in a week. And the last day of the season in, February, right after the Super Bowl, I'm always so sad and go into a little bit of depression. I do like to watch NFL football, not so much college, because I like to be able to stick with, players for longer than 2 or 3 years. I like to watch professional tennis. I play pickleball. I try to get out and walk and play pickleball as much as possible. But I can use the excuse of, oh, I'm behind in my writing very easily. I find time just because sometimes I just need to take a break. I love to read, obviously. But sometimes I love football, I love tennis and the sports to watch them on television because they're so dramatic and they can make me cry and they can make me laugh. But I'm not watching for story. I'm not going, oh, how did they do that? Oh, look at how that twist over there. Oh, look what the character did. It's just, I can enjoy the drama without going, oh, I should learn from that. I can just enjoy it.
Okay. What does your writing space look like? And what do you need to have with you when you're writing? Like food, drink, things like that?
Water, coffee, tea. I'm trying not to have crackers on my desk, but sometimes I just do. My writing space is, it's like piled. I'm just looking around at all my books and my papers. And, I write notes to myself, don't forget to do this. And this is what you need to do today. And I never look at them because I'm just focused on my computer or on my notebook. I tend to either write longhand or on the computer, print it up, rewrite, polish, rewrite, polish, print it up again, rewrite, polish. So I have my notebook with the book that I'm writing, and then all this other stuff that I thought I would pay attention to, that I'm telling myself to pay attention to, that after a week, I go, okay, where is that? What was I supposed to do? I don't mind a messy desk, but for some reason, I like the room to be pretty neat and tidy. It's weird. I never thought about that. Yeah, I do need to have coffee or tea, especially in the morning. And I do crackers more than cookies, but I'm trying not to do that. I'm trying to get myself to eat blueberries as if it was a snack.
That's a good snack.
I haven't really accomplished that because I'm like going, I want that crunch. I want that crunch.
Yeah. Now, when you're writing, do you prefer silence or music? And if it's music, what type of music?
I pretty much like silence, but because music can be very distracting to me, like jazz, forget it. I can't write if there's jazz on. So if it's music, it has to be kind of soft and classical. Sometimes I'll put on Bach or something like that, just because it's just like it becomes background and it's calming. But I am a coffee shop and bar writer, so I go in the morning, and like if I got up in the morning and just came to my silent office, I'd probably go back to bed, or I'd go what should I have for dinner or whatever. So I get out in the morning, do that, and I like the hubbub around me, but nobody. I've gotten to know these people now after 4 years of showing up every morning. So everyone just kind of leaves me alone, and I'm friendly with everyone, but I can just absolutely block it out. I can tell you a terrible story. I was once in a library in Washington State on Whidbey Island, and I was working on my first little book called Pilgrim Girl, a diary and recipes of her first year in America, that I was writing with my friend Laura Peters. And I just got so into my research and so much into the writing, and I was in a corner in the library, and this woman, I think anyway, I guess she fell down, or something happened to her. And I was writing, and absolutely blocked it all out. And then all of a sudden I looked up, and there was like this ambulance, and this woman was being put on a stretcher and being taken out of the
Oh,
library.
no.
Oh my God, what a terrible person I am that I didn't even see it. And so yeah, I can get really tunnel visioned.
Yeah, I guess when you're really involved with your characters and everything, it's sometimes hard. Wow.
But yeah, so that can happen. And then there's a place here in Portland called the Armory Lounge, and there's little dark corners. And I never go if it's crowded. I always go off hours, and I'll just have a glass of wine, and I'll polish up some more stuff. I don't take my computer. I just am working longhand on paper. And so I really, so those noise there doesn't bother me, but at home, I tend to go for silence.
Okay. Now, a lot of authors sometimes have furry or feathered or otherwise non-human companions to either help or hinder them with their work. And do you have any, and do they help or hinder you?
Yeah, no, we, when our daughter was, in school, we were in Pasadena, California, and we had a dog and loved him to death. And then he was 17 and he died. It was so sad. But and then I started traveling so much. We started traveling so much. I started teaching in London and Florence, and I went to Russia to teach. And our daughter was gone. So after a while, it just became like we can't take on the responsibility of having an animal because we don't, we were gone so much. And we're still kind of in that mode where we like to just be able to close the door. I do miss having a dog. But I don't know. We could talk about it, but we go, yeah, but we're going here in 2 weeks, and then we come back for 2 weeks, and then we're going there. So
yeah, that's hard. That's very hard. I have two more questions for you. One is, where can people find your work aside from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester? And I have to plug Annie's. You can get Jule's work at Annie's. If you call us at 508-796-5613, we can get copies of Jule's books. Or you can send us email at orders@anniesbooksworcester.com. Where else can people find your work?
Well, they're on the online bookstores. I'm a big proponent of the landed bookstores. I spend a lot of time browsing in them. So in Portland, of course, you could get my books at all. There's like 4 independent bookstores around. But other than that, it's just kind of hit and miss, I guess. Because they'll order books, but who knows how many and if they go out the door. But I find that if you have your favorite bookstore, it's just like you said, all you have to do is ask them, and it usually takes like 2 days at tops to get it. So support your landed bookstores and just order it from them. I would really encourage people to do that.
Okay. And my last question is, how can we follow your work and share your awesomeness?
Well, I'm on Instagram. Everything's Jule Selbo, all one word. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I have a web page, which is juleselbo.com. And yeah, and then on the online bookstores, I'll have my author information and all that kind of stuff. That'll also lead you to my website. So yeah, and it's great if someone writes me a note. It's so much fun to hear from people and talk story and get their reactions. So it's always great.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for talking with me, and Jule Selbo, and maybe you'll be able to get to Worcester one of these days. You're not that far.
Yeah, I'm coming in October. I'm going to be on the cable show Books Around the World in Cape Cod. And so I'll be there in October for 3 or 4 days. And I think I'll be at the Osterville Village Library October 13th. Yeah, because Cape Cod, and I've taught at the Writers Conference there a couple of times. It's just so beautiful there. Every time I set foot on Cape Cod, I go, oh my God, this is heaven. This is just beautiful.
It is beautiful down there. It really is. So, well, again, thank you. And we will hopefully see another couple of books from you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love talking to you. It was great.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you. Bye.
Bye.